Paul, have you looked outside?
Brad, let me tell you something. This is a really interesting observation
Mm-hmm.
moving from Massachusetts to Pennsylvania. Or at least I think it is because it's my observation. Um, in Massachusetts, school would have occurred today. We could have gotten 3 to 5 inches of snow and whatever. But had school been canceled, or had it been a half day, those students would have made that up later in the year. They would be going to school through July if that's what was required.
Mm-hmm.
But see, in Pennsylvania, they don't do that. There's a rumor that it's going to snow today, so they called a half day because, God, you never know. And, half a day's enough here in the state of Pennsylvania. So we don't really give a crap if our kids learn anything. All we're doing is checking off boxes. Yeah.
Because this is what my outside looks like.
Yeah.
We have a holly tree, I think is what its official name is, something like that. You can
Does
see
this mean
there's-
that the, what is it called? Like the cranberry harvest is ruined or something?
Sort of, except these are the what we call the late fall snack for all the birds in the neighborhood. Because as you can see, they're
Right.
getting pretty ripe here. And then one day, a flock of birds will come and just pick this thing clean in, like, no joke, like 4 hours once they find it.
Yep.
And then, But it's iced over everything. And
It would be amusing if there was a bird kind of like frozen to it. You know?
yes, and yeah, there is that. Survival of the fittest, right?
the smartest, at least.
Well, if they're smart, they would be in Florida. There's a reason why they're called snowbirds.
Right. I think I'm allergic to snow. I've been sneezing all morning. It's really strange.
You know what else is strange is that Paul, for the first time, I think, and this is 509 episodes?
Mm-hmm.
510. This is 510th.
I know what you're going to say, and this is not fair, but please.
Paul came prepared with show notes, and he has something he wants to talk about. What is it, Paul?
Well, first of all, I've done that at least 2 or 3 times in the past. So, no, today, I believe today is the 5th anniversary of the PlayStation 4. And there's some interesting, let me just bring this up because Sony has provided this data. As of September, they've sold over 86 million units.
Whoa.
As of June, they've sold over 778 million units of software. They've had 11 major system software updates since launch. They're now on version 6. And by the way, the top 2 selling titles of all time are 2 Call of Duty games. Call of Duty Black Ops 3, I think, and World War II.
I suspect that you've bought both of those copies multiple times on the PlayStation to help boost those numbers.
I did, in fact, buy both of those on the PlayStation. Actually, it's kind of interesting. I didn't do it for the latest one because what's happened... Well, what those 2 games represent to me, by the way, are the... Black Ops 3 was the first game that was not an exclusive, but it was first on PlayStation. So all of the DLC came out first on that platform. By a month, which was a huge problem. Same thing with World War II. It was like a month early. So I literally bought these games so I could, use the DLC early. And then for the most recent game, Black Ops 4, they're not doing that anymore. So it's like there is a lead time, but it's only like a week. So, for example, the Nuketown map just came out on PlayStation 4 this week, but it's going to be on Xbox next week. Anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting. That's most of the data. I guess I'll probably write this up.
It's still, what, 86 million? That's nothing.
That's impressive.
Yeah. I mean, that's like 1.5 iPhone quarters.
Well, I mean, to put it in
Or
the
maybe 2
perspective of
quarters.
the video game industry, I believe the previous gen console sold roughly that number over its entire life cycle. And the PlayStation, this is since September, they've probably gone past 88 million by now or whatever. So it's there's no way to say it. It's just a huge success.
Yeah. Yeah, and during that same time period, Microsoft's put out about 86 million different versions of the Xbox.
And they've sold about 8 million of them, so it's worked out great.
Yeah, so if it's the 2-to-1 ratio, if that did hold, that means Microsoft's at about what 40-ish million.
Yeah, I don't have any recent data on that, and of course, all of this is speculative. I seem to recall. I don't remember. This has to do with there were industry insiders, like people who work for game companies that kind of have said publicly what they believe the sales numbers are. I think it was closer to 30 than 40, but that was some time ago. So, it's if I was guessing, I would say somewhere between 30 and 40, but probably closer to 30.
Interesting. Interesting. And so let's not let the good time ends here, Paul. And you have there's a forum post.
This is gonna seem a little extreme, and it's a little dark, but I
new for the show.
Well, yeah, but I like to. Well, it bothers me sometimes the way people think, and I try to think around that and try to. I hope I can make people think a little differently about some things. So, for example, somebody actually, let me just look at it. In our forums, the top post today is BDSRE Rev, or whatever. How do you say that? Google's Pixel Android quality is somehow even worse than Windows. Yeah, and 14 comments. I think there's a good case to be made there. Certainly, the quality of what Google is doing with their hardware, especially, is almost certainly worse than the quality of Windows, whatever problems we've seen with Windows. But, sprinkled throughout that are some comments from some people who said, I have a Pixel 2 or 3 or whatever it is, and I don't have any problems, and these problems are overblown. And I take great offense to that. So let me explain this to you in a way that I think most people will agree with, even though they might find this comparison a little squeamish. A couple weeks ago, we were talking about the documentary film crew that came through my house. They were there because my son, when he was 1 year old, came down with bacterial meningitis. He almost died, but he became completely deaf. I think we can all agree that this is rare. In fact, I had a doctor tell me that it was kind of a 1 in a million shot. It was like he won the lottery in reverse. This doesn't happen to people. It does literally happen to people, but it's not common. Most people listening to this or watching this probably don't know someone who almost died from bacterial meningitis and became deaf as the result of it. We could say that this obviously happens. We believe these stories, but it's not endemic to the human race. It's not an endemic problem. Certainly, it's not one if we get vaccinated, by the way, but let's not get sidetracked. No, but seriously.
Yeah, stab your kids.
But, if you said to me, Paul, do you have cancer? And I said, no, I don't. My body is completely free of cancer. And as a result, I believe that the stories about cancer are overblown. I know several people who do not have cancer. Thus, in my little anecdotal worldview, cancer is fake. I'm sure it happens to some people, but it's probably like bacterial meningitis. It's not an endemic problem. Because I've been lucky, or because whatever, my body has not been riddled by cancer. I'm not dead. I'm not dying of cancer. I didn't suffer from cancer and recover from cancer, whatever it might be. I believe that cancer is overblown. And that is a really dangerous mindset because when I look at things like the Pixel phones, for example, I personally have sent back 4 of them to Google because of literal problems with them. But that's just anecdotal. As an industry observer, I pay attention to the reports that are out in the world. And I got to tell you, it's real. The Pixel 2 XL and both Pixel 3s have endemic hardware problems. They're unreliable in general, and that if you have one and it works fine, congratulations. I would say that in some cases, I think you're putting up with issues that you don't see as issues. In other cases, you're just lucky, that you didn't have the USB port problems that I had, or the USB problems I had twice with the Pixel 2 XL, or the tinny, echoey speaker sound on the Pixel 3. I've heard from a lot of people who come back to me and say, well, I don't play sound through the speakers, so I don't care. Well, congratulations. But that doesn't mean it's not real.
Right.
I guess what I'm trying to say is a lot of people escalate anecdotal information to fact. And really what it is just a fact for you. And these Pixel problems are real. And they're not real because they happen to me. They're real because they're happening to thousands of people. You don't have to go too far on the internet to find reports of problems with these things. There's an entire page of problems on Android Police, which does a great job of tracking these and is tracking how Google is responding to them. In many cases, they're not. Anyway, I take great offense to that kind of thinking. Not just because it happened to me personally, but because it's just not a smart way of thinking. Like, look, if you have a Pixel 3 and it's working, God love you. I mean, congratulations. I hope it never stops working. but I'm telling you that in my role as, what I do for a profession, it's very clear that these things have problems. Very clear. That's all.
Yeah. Do you feel better now?
Was that too extreme?
No.
No, it wasn't bad.
I don't know. I mean, it's just been one of those weeks, right? We had 1809. We have that. We have.
Yeah. Well, but 1809 actually is a good example of this too. I've said this many times. I installed 1809 very early on most of my computers. I've never had any problems with it. But you know what? Does that mean I don't believe that these problems were serious, that these problems impacted people, that these problems betray perhaps a lack of capability at Microsoft to get ahead of things like this? That 30 years or whatever it is into Windows lifetime, maybe they should already have solved these problems. No, the fact that those things didn't happen to me doesn't impact the fact that those problems were real. They delayed the thing for 6 weeks, folks.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that I have had no problems is fantastic for me, but it doesn't really say anything about the quality of the product.
I got nothing.
I know. I'm sorry.
It's
in the good news department, by the way. That night sight feature that's coming to Pixel originally was thought to be a Pixel 3 feature, is actually going to be brought to all Pixels. So if you have a first or second generation Pixel, like I do now, you'll be able to take advantage of this feature. And the photo comparisons I've seen, you can look this up on YouTube. Someone did a comparison across all 3 phones using the same feature, and there are subtle differences. They came to the conclusion that the Pixel 3 had the best photos, but looking at the pictures that they provide, I actually don't see it that way. It's true in some cases, but honestly, it seems pretty even across the 3 phones. Regardless, if you do have a Pixel, or if you're considering a Pixel, the camera is one of the big reasons people buy these devices, and low light photography and especially is one of the big advantages of this platform. This feature makes it even better. It's kind of weird because I was like, well, how could you make it better than it is? Well, night sight actually does. So that's something to look forward to. That's coming this week.
Other things coming. I didn't have time to get it all arranged properly, but light theme. If you've been looking at your taskbar and saying, that's too dark, Microsoft will have a solution for you in 19H1, and it's going to look like this-ish.
Yeah, I'm hoping it doesn't actually look like this, because the problem with this thing, because it's beautiful, right?
Yeah,
if you look at that, it's gorgeous.
I like it. Yeah.
It's also too light. So we already have a light theme today, right? I think people kind of lost sight of that. The normal theme is light, So they added a dark theme, and the dark theme is actually pretty terrible. It's inconsistent. It's it's not great, but I do find it easier on my eyes. So I actually do use dark theme on my Windows 10 computers, just like I use it on the Mac, where it actually looks awesome, by the way. I like the look of that, but the truth is, no, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying, but what I mean is it's really bright, and when I just put that background on my computer, I had to get rid of it. It was too bright. Just the background was too bright. So I guess what I'm asking for here is for Microsoft, and I think this will happen over the course of the testing, is to leave the current light theme as a medium theme or something. And then I'm not saying don't add this. People will want this. It's great. Not against choice, but I think there should be a little more of a gradient in between, because that thing is very extreme from a brightness perspective. And it will probably impact battery life, frankly, but it will hurt your eyes too, especially if you're using it at night or in a dark place.
Yeah, I don't know if black or white is harder to create. I'm not that tech savvy for a monitor. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's like it needs a little SPF like 50, which I can relate to. Maybe that's why I like it.
It is elegant looking, right? The thing I like about it is it has kind of a modern, flat look to it. Like there's something about it, when you compare it to the normal theme, you're like, actually, it looks really modern. Like, don't get me wrong, I like the look of it. I just think there needs to be something between the two extremes.
Maybe just turn your brightness down, Paul.
Okay.
just try it off.
No, you're right. I should have to fix the problem manually myself. That's fine.
You should.
We don't have computers couldn't automate that for me.
You should.
I mean, obviously, what this reminds me of is when Windows XP was coming out, and during the development of Windows XP, they were saying they were going to have all these different colored themes, right? And the default theme in Windows XP was blue and green, and then they actually had a silver theme, if I remember correctly. And they had a weird olive green theme, right?
Oh yeah, that's right. They did.
Yeah. And then over time, there was a media center theme that was kind of dark. I remember that. But originally, the plan was they were going to have all these themes available, and people could make their own themes. You'd be able to customize the whole thing. But actually, the way they did it was they implemented that UI with bitmaps, and so it was a really ponderous process to like change the theme, like to have a new theme. So they never really did it, except for that one thing I just mentioned, the media center thing. Oh, super important phone call coming in from a spammer. Could you hold, please? Anyway, they're probably calling to tell me that Massachusetts still has school today because despite the snow. My daughter's downstairs having a party of one. She just got home from school. Tough quarter
life.
day of learning. Yeah, 9-minute classes or something. Anyway, I look at that and I think of the XP thing, and I think this suggests to me that having some range of modes, I don't know what you call that, like they call it app mode sometimes, or theme, whatever it is, I think would be desirable. Like, I think it'd be kind of nice. Obviously they have accent colors and so forth, but I'd like to see more granularity to it. I bet they get there.
Yeah, it's day one, theme one, and we'll see what happens.
Look, we're months away from this thing. I'm not freaking out about it. I think it's beautiful. I just think it's a little too bright.
Yeah, I was trying to think if there's anything else going on. It's Mary Jo Foley's birthday today, so happy birthday, Mary Jo. Yep. I gave her a copy of my book as my birthday, the cheapest possible gift I could, in fact, actually get her. I did.
That's funny. I made this just for you.
I did. I wrote the whole thing.
It was like that time, I think I told this story, I don't know if it was on the podcast, but I went to one of my mother's birthdays. I had just gotten the copy of Windows 7 Secrets, so I brought it to the restaurant or whatever, and everyone's giving her their presents, and I put the book down in front of my mother, and I looked at my brother, and I said, Jonathan, where's the book that you wrote for Mom?
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm going to
just
steal
in
that
case you
joke.
thought this interaction was private to Brad and I, it's it's the circle, really.
Yeah, it's the circle of trust. I'm going to do the same thing actually this holiday. Funny enough, I think my mother might be the single-handed largest gross purchaser of the book. She is giving it to everybody and everything. I don't think she quite understands the topic or the contents, but she's proud of it, having not seen it or known anything. Yeah,
you know this because I mentioned it, but because of this book yesterday, I did there was one chapter I'd missed, and the chapter I'd missed was the original Surface launch, right? I thought I had edited it, but then when I went back and did do it, I was like, no, actually, I didn't edit this. And I was reading it, I was like, it's funny, I don't remember it this way. Did it? Panos, I don't want to give too much away because this is in the book, but Panos Panay was kind of like an afterthought almost in the original. He was like the fourth person, it was kind of strange,
Mm-hmm.
And obviously that changed dramatically over time, but it caused me to go back and watch it. And then I also went back and watched, not all of, but a big chunk of the Windows 8 launch, which also had some RT stuff. And it's really weird in retrospect because Steven Sinofsky came skipping up on stage, having had just been fired.
Yeah.
And you could tell he didn't prepare for this at all. He was looking right down at the teleprompter the whole time to get his lines. And he was a horrible human being. My God. And it's such an awkward presenter. No, he was just horrible. And you go back and watch this stuff and you're like, no, listen, there's probably 1,000 people out there who think they're the next Steve Jobs. There is no one more inadequate than this guy at trying to do that. Like, his presentation style was so stiff and so awful. It's just awful. And he kept stumbling over everything. He kept one thing he says again and again. He keeps doing it. He did it in across multiple events. He would say, and we're just getting started. Like, just in the middle of talking about stuff, he'd be like, it has a kickstand and it does this, and we're just getting started. And then it does this, and it's like, you're like, what are you talking about? Like, he's terrible. Terrible. And, Panos Panay is, I guess is kind of controversial from a speaking style perspective. Some people love him and some people don't. And certainly the guy, sometimes he just goes off on these crazy tangents. But He's certainly a more polished speaker than Steven Sinofsky, and
Slightly.
yeah, and being that close to the heart, being the guy, right?
Yeah.
He is very passionate about the stuff. So with Sinofsky, I to this day, I like like I said, I went back and watched it. I'm like, it's not clear to me that he gave a shit about this at all. Like it's bizarre.
It is.
Yeah.
No, it is.
It's interesting if you like this stuff. I mean, you should read Brad's book, but you should also go back and look at these videos. It's great. Like some of this stuff is crazy.
Yep.
This guy ripping windows. Like it's nuts.
Yep.
Yeah.
You got anything else for today, Mr. Thurrott?
No.
Good.
I'm
Good.
gonna be shoveling snow, and actually, I'm hoping to go for a walk in the snow. I didn't walk this morning. I'm gonna.
Yeah,
start up.
there's a significant amount of moisture. Just it's kind of pushing through here, and it's about to just start, trickling on you. And
Yeah, we're at the point where sometime between now and an hour from now, there is a 100% chance of it snowing for the next 4 or 5 hours.
Yep.
Yep.
I mean, the good thing is you left Boston to get away from that. And
in the list of things that I thought was a good idea and kind of came back to bite me in the ass afterwards, I'd have to say this is not even in the top 10, but yeah,
definitely a top 20 moment, maybe top 50. Somewhere.
It's certainly notable. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what is today? Today's Thursday. So that means tomorrow's show is live, folks, at 1 p.m. Eastern time, provided Paul is still there and he hasn't been turned into a snowman. You can find that information at thurrott.com/live and have yourselves a wonderful and hopefully not too snowy Thursday.